Hey guys, so thank you so much for purchasing this production walkthrough for my new track Axioma. Your support means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. So I hope that this walkthrough gives you some insight on how I got all the sounds for this song, exactly what plugins I'm using, kind of how my Logic session is arranged, which you can apply to, of course, any DAW. Um, but yeah, so I'll kind of go like section by section and track by track and show you exactly what plugins I'm using, how I got these guitar tones, all the synth sounds, all the production, and then every now and then maybe break down some guitar parts and rhythms and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get going. So I have my Logic session in front of me for the track Axioma. It's a pretty simple Logic session. The only thing I'm not going to go over here are the drum sounds because I did not mix the drums. The drums were mixed on an analog board in Nashville. So these drums are just the raw drum sounds that you're going to be hearing. There's a little bit of compression EQ in some places, but that was just for my own sanity. In the actual track, none of these were used. So I'm just gonna kind of keep this drum stack folder tucked away. And yeah, so let's go kind of part by part and see what's going on. On my stereo bus, this is another thing that's not in the actual mix, but I kind of just do this on all of my working sessions because it's more enjoyable for me to listen to. I have a compressor, an EQ, and a limiter. So if you'd like, you can copy these settings. Again, it's not in the final song, so this is kind of just for myself. Just boosting quite a bit of high end, a little bit of lows here on the overall mix, and then kind of gluing everything together with the compression, and then bringing up the volume in with this limiter. Okay, so let's go through this beginning section, which sounds like this. So guitar tone wise, it's a lot different than the rest of the song, and it's different than most of the other stuff that I've released. The idea behind it was that I wanted it to have like this tiny amp in a room sound, and all these guitar tones are in the box. These are all Neural DSP, including this guitar tone, and the Neural DSP plugin that allows me to get room sound is it's this one. It's Tone King. So if I make this a little bigger, I'm running a compressor pretty heavily, and then I'm running this rhythm channel I'm turning the treble up pretty significantly. I find that this plugin's a little bit dark, so I'm boosting quite a bit of high end in the amp. I've got a little bit of reverb, spring reverb going, and then here's kind of where this magic is happening. This room level. So if I solo this track and I loop it, this room level is adding in like this fake room sound. So if I turn it off, it sounds like that. And then back on. So I just thought it sounded cool, and I've always kind of wanted to have some really roomy guitar tone in one of my songs. And this just happened to, I felt that it fit right. So I actually have it going on both ends of this guitar. So if I turn both of them off, much more like close mic vibes. And if I turn them both on, very, very roomy. So cool. The only other thing I have going here is that I'm taking out a bunch of low end from this guitar because I really wanted it to be just this tiny sound because when everything comes in, I want it to be much bigger, right? So this is just like a very tiny guitar sound, and I'll show you it with and without. So it's taking out quite a lot of low end. Yeah. So the next thing that happens is we got this little swell. So we have this sample, which is like a vocal sample, vocal swell that I just got from Splice. Did I pitch it? I put little altar boy on it to add like some high, like an octave up, and I blended it slightly. It's a pretty cool plugin. I do that kind of thing quite a bit. Then I have a reverse cymbal that I took from the drum recording. And then I have an intro swell. It's really barely doing anything, honestly. But most of the sound is coming from this vocal swell and this overhead cymbal swell. And that's kind of it with that. I was also reverse kind of thing. But let's get into it. So this first section, if I press play, so there's quite a lot happening here. First we have this guitar. Which is just like drenched in delay and reverb, simply because I thought it sounded cool. And what I'm using for that is Archetype Mateus Asado. No overdrive, so this is just a lot of compression. These are my amp settings, so I turned down the bass a little bit. It's not cutting the high end of this at all. These are the IR settings. I'm taking out some low end with this high pass filter in the EQ, and then I'm taking out some high end with this low pass filter in the EQ. That's just because I thought it was a bit too harsh on the high end, and then there's just way too much bass on the low end, so I ended up taking out both. And then here's my reverb and delay. The width on the delay is turned all the way up because I want it to do like a ping pong kind of effect. Yeah, the mix is turned up quite a bit too. And then outside of that, there's a little bit of EQ, taking out more low end. So what else is happening here? We have this kalimba sound, which is actually a sample from a YouTuber that goes by Venus Theory. And he makes sample packs, or like sampler pack things for Decent Sampler, which is a free sampler. And this is a free sample pack. So I just kind of took that because I thought it sounded really good. And that's doubling the lead guitar line. So if I play both, it's adding tons of attack and all that like high-end percussion-y sound. And then I have this stack of these synths happening. So very wide, very like textural, I guess. And both of these are Labs plugins. So put on both of them. One of them is called the Vibraphone Duo. The next one is the Quad Classic Synth. And these are both free. Again, these are both from Spitfire Audio, from their Labs collection, which is something I use all the time. They have a bunch of really amazing sounds that you can get. So this is what they sound like individually. Here's the bells. So it sounds like a bunch of bells being hit at once for each note. Then the vintage synth. Kind of cool. And if I layer them with the kalimba, with the guitar, so there's just tons of layering going on. And the whole idea is that I'm trying to get it to sound like a single instrument, I guess. So all these layers are kind of playing the same notes, but they all have different EQs, they all have different textures and sounds, and then when they combine together, it creates, in my own head at least, like a single instrument. So the next thing that's happening is there are some chords, and I'll start with the synth. And these are Analog Lab 5 from Arturia Labs, or Arturia, I think it's just called Arturia. And this is the reverse box preset. Really cool sound. And what I did though, to make it even a bit more interesting, is that I layered it with a tremolo. So I'm using the tremolator from Soundtoys. I have it on the Fender Vibra Lux preset. And you hear it, here's without it. So it's cool, but then with it, I just really like the sound of a tremolo. So I don't know, I thought it was cool. Then we have two left and right guitar layers doing this. So definitely an interesting sound. Let's kind of break down what's happening. So I recorded the chords stereo. So left, hard right, hard left. And then I put them in a stack. And then on that stack, I have a bunch of plugins going. So I have Archetype Abassi. I have the compressor on. I have a little bit of the blend knob. Some gain. Taking out a bunch of low end here. And then some reverb. So if I turn off everything except for the Archetype plugin, sounds like that. It's very quiet. So what I did was I added a compressor and I compressed the hell out of it. I wanted it to sound like artificial, like almost like it's a synth. I was kind of treating it like a layer to those bell synths and not thinking about it as like I didn't want it to sound like a normal guitar. I wanted it to sound weird. So that's what I did. The next thing is I took out more low end with the EQ. And then the cool stuff that I think is I added a bit crusher. So this really gets it that like you get all that weird high-end sizzle, like distortion-ish kind of thing. I really love the sound of a bit crusher on clean guitar chords. I think you have to use it sparingly because it's a very specific sound, but I think it just sounds really cool. And then what I did was I put just a ton of reverb. And this is the Little Plate plugin from Soundtoys. Probably my favorite plate reverb. Yeah. And that's that whole stack. The other thing that is happening that I think makes it sound pretty cool is that I actually just bounced these down and then each chord I reversed it. So it swells into the chord. You can hear it here. And if I play them together, So yeah, kind of interesting. So I guess the only other thing happening here is this bass. So there's two bass layers, as you can see throughout the whole song, that are always happening together. So there's never just a single layer of bass. And what it is it's Grove bass from Submission Audio, and it's a synth bass from a stock Logic plugin that I just think sound really cool together. And again, I'm trying to treat these as a single instrument. So both of them are stacked together, compressed together, I think. Actually, no, that's not true. They're not compressed together, but they're stacked together and they're always playing together. So this is what that sounds like. So I wanted it to sound like a synth bass. The Grove bass is in there for some of the frequencies and for I like the attack of it. And I thought it just sounded really cool layered with this synth bass. So to show you, here's the Grove bass that I'm using. I'm just using the clean setting. And this is the synth bass. So I have the ES2 with these settings, layered with the effects rack with the blown out preset. And this is again from SoundToys. So this is adding all this distortion. Then I'm using Teletronics tube compressor from Universal Audio. EQ, because I'm taking out a bunch of low end because this bass is being layered. The synth bass is being layered with Grove bass, and I don't want all the frequencies from both basses clashing with each other. So I took out the low end from the synth bass. And then lastly, we have this ozone imager, which is taking, because this synth bass in Logic is only stereo, but I wanted it to be mono because I want it straight down the middle. So I use this plugin to get rid of the stereo width. So I'm going to turn all these off, all these plugins off, and I'm turn them on one at a time. This is just the synth bass. Effects rack, compressor, EQ, ozone, and then Grove bass. And then the only difference when it goes to this lower bass channel here is that it's still Grove bass, but now it's the distortion setting instead of the clean setting. So the same thing kind of happens throughout this whole first section, and then here we get some more chuggy guitars. So this is interesting because this is actually a 6-string guitar that I recorded, and then I added an octave pedal and I think archetype of bossy. So this is the stack, this octave guitar stack. So I'm using archetype Gojira just for this octave pedal sound. And then I have archetype Abasi for this amp sound. And then I have an EQ taking out some low end. So here's what it sounds like without the octave pedal. And then with the octave pedal. So I'm faking 8-string. Even though I own an 8-string, I just wanted a different sound than that. Um, and I just thought this was a really cool idea, I guess, like a cool sound. So this is two archetype plugins stacked on top of each other to get like an octavey sound. And then, so here's something that I think is really cool. I wanted like some ambience, but like some organic kind of ambience. And so I had my friend Stefan Nasrat come over and he recorded some violin stacks of him just like playing a bunch of different random things. And then I stacked them all together. So that's this here. I stacked these all together. I panned them differently. And then I put some plugins on it. So let me turn off the plugins first. And then this is just the violin. So it's like a bunch of random like little where he would like play and then move his hand down. It's very interesting, kind of cool. But I knew it wouldn't work just by itself like that. When we recorded this, I already knew I was going to kind of like mess with it and add a bunch of plugins and stuff. So the first plugin that I added to it was Portal. I'm using the Chordal Clouds setting, and you're going to hear immediately how different this sounds. So now I'm going to turn on Portal. So now it's a completely different sound. That I really love. So now it sounds like there's all these like chords and stuff happening in a really interesting way. And then what else do I have? So here I'm using Archetype Mateus Osato just for the delay and reverb. So I'm using lots of delay, lots of reverb. If I turn that on. And then I added some EQ just to take out a couple harsh frequencies. But I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool thing to have real instruments and then turn them into like this ambient glitchy pad thing. So something else that's happening that I'm pretty proud of is I have this. Is it this? Yeah, it's this. Okay. It's this crazy like, so what I did was I used my quad cortex. I made a really ambient patch and then I just like picked really fast on some single notes. And that sounded like this. So I thought that was kind of cool, but I wanted it again to sound a little more, I don't know, just glitchy or something. So I added Portal again, and that sounds like this. So I was doing like this crazy stereo thing. And this is with the time rotation preset. So I'm going to turn it off and on. This is on, off. So very interesting sound. Then what else is happening? I have this like ambient palm mute thing. And this is archetype Pliny with compression, some gain here. Lots of reverb. And then, again, I'm using Portal, but with the mix like at 50% with the fourth shape pan preset. And then I'm also adding even more reverb. So this is like 16 seconds of reverb, which is a lot, but I just thought it sounded cool. And that is being layered with this kalimba, and actually not the kalimba. It's just being layered with that synth stack from the intro. So it's this. And then with the palm mute. Then this octave guitar is again the same. It's the same stack as before. So it's the octave pedal into archetype Abasi. That sounds like this. Pretty cool. Okay. Then we have this lead guitar that comes in. And this is archetype Mateus Asado with the overdrive pedal. And then these are the amp settings. I'm taking out more high end and more low end here. Lots of delay and reverb. That's the only thing that's going on for the lead tone. And then this lead guitar, I think, is the same exact Mateus Asado tone as the guitar lead that we just played. But now it's playing that intro part. Cool, now we have this little like video gamey synth thing happening. And that is the B strings preset that I guess I edited a little bit from the Arturia CZ5. This is part of the Analog Labs like plugin suite, I guess. But this is just the individual synth plugin. Yeah, and I'm not doing anything else besides it's just this plugin on this track. There's no EQ or anything. Okay, bass is the same as before, but now we have these 8-string guitar stacks. This is actually an 8-string. This is my Abasi Lorada Legion 8-string. The reason that I did this instead of the octave 6-string thing that I was doing earlier in the song is that I needed those lower strings to play this in the tuning and note choice that I had wanted originally. So these notes go much lower than my 6-string, and it gave me more flexibility to kind of do exactly what I thought the track called for. So what's happening here is that it is just archetype Abasi. And I'm using this preset that you can that comes with this video file. But you can see I'm using compression, this amp again, no reverb or delay. So it's just a super tight 8-string sound. Another thing, you can see that I cut out all the silence in this section. That's because I really wanted that super tight, like gent sound. And that comes from manually cutting out all the silence. It does take a little while at first, but it's a much cleaner sound than like just using a gate or something. It's very different. So that layered with the bass. So this is the synth that I used, the synth stack from the intro and that main section of the song. So this is the exact same sound. And the other sound that's happening that's new is this. And that's the DX7 with the Mileto preset. So mallets, a very strong attack sound. And then some EQ, which I think I've just taken out a bunch of low end. So if I layer those two together, it sounds like this. And I had those two parts kind of like interlocking. So when one part isn't playing, the other part's playing, and vice versa. So if I solo just all these synths, you'll hear them going like back and forth. Yeah. Now the other thing that happens at the end here, so these guitars are both the same sound. The kalimba comes back from the intro, so it's literally the exact same track, so it sounds exactly the same. And then this is a new track, which sounds like this. And that is the Labs synth. So this is actually the synth that I was using earlier, the quad synth, but it's just a new track and I affected it slightly different. So this is the quad from Spitfire Audio Labs. And I have some EQ, which is taking out low end. And then I have the radiator, which is taking out a little more low end and like really pushing and like almost distorting the synth. So I'll turn this off and turn it on. So this is off. And then on. Off. On. So it's making it quite a bit louder, but it's also adding some like gain to the sound, like a little bit of overdrive. So if I play all of that together. And then just crazy drums. So, I mean, that's pretty much the whole song. Is definitely it's a bit simpler production-wise than Chronostasis, but there's still a lot going on. I've been taking the approach of like less is more kind of thing. So like, even though there's lots of layers, a lot of them are kind of doing the same thing. And I'm just trying to find the right combination of synths and sounds to get like to hear them all as one sound. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new that you can take and use in your own music. Again, thank you so much for purchasing this video, this breakdown. Yeah, I think that's all that I have to say. So I'll see you guys later. Oh, also real quick, you can also buy the production walkthrough for the other songs that are coming out. So I have Chronostasis that's already out that has the production walkthrough. And then the next song is going to be coming out. There will also be a production walkthrough on that. So if you purchase this and that song is already out, then it is on my website. So yeah, cool. See you guys.